I'm from a small town on Highway 59 called Louise, and I've traveled greatly since then, but I always like to come back to Austin every summer. I feel it's my real home. Jenny, that was fabulous. Jenny and I are both in Wing Beats, and Scott and David are here. These are available in the bookstore as well. These are exercises and practice in poetry. And we said that we believe in this book. It's a really great book. It's a great series. So I just wanted to read the poem that I have in here and to tell you a little bit about it, because I think that this book, and I gave sort of all the tricks in this thing, this is sort of my guiding principle for the new book that is coming out in April called Decency. And I'll read you some poems from Decency right now. So the poem that I'm going to read you is based, I've used the OED, and I've used a walking exercise, and I've gone to some museums to study the history of glass and beer straws. The Egyptians used to use beer straws to drink beer, and they got a daily allotment of beer, and depending on what kind of worker you were. So I'll read about that. It's called Hebrew Lesson, Abara, and the word means crossing or violation. In Venezuela, we could whack the heads off these empty wine bottles, plant their bottoms in fresh cement so their jagged teeth would flash between the rich and those of the poor unemployed by the rich. If we were still in Germany, there'd be a pragmatic plastic bin labeled colored glass, and there they'd sleep it off till someone hauled them to the rubber belt. They'd ride for free, be scrubbed and dried. They'd open their mouths and be filled again. If we were still in Austin or South Philly, we'd be laughing so hard when they fell. We'd gather their shards, and with mirrors, because the more the merrier, and plastic glow-in-the-dark saints, we'd make the guys who piss against the walls at night something nice to look at. As Henry Ford said, art should be something for every day. Most workers on large public projects in Mesopotamia got 1 liter of beer a day. On the occasion of Queen Puabi's death, her daily allotment, 6 liters, with silver, gold, and lapis straws cased with marsh reeds. 12 chambermaids, 5 male armed guards, and 2 groomsmen were thrown a banquet to die for, literally. Had I been there, I would have looked longest at the rams, rendered in gold, silver, and lapis lazuli, each raised on hind legs, nibbling a shrub. Coffee? At some point that night, I would have dipped my cup into a copper pot like everyone else and drunk it. The effect was irreversible. It's true my mother's angry children made me keep their vineyards while my own I had not kept. But lately I've found myself possessed of stone jars full of sweet and of breath that hovers just above the earth a while. When I taste it, I don't know what is earth and what is air, what is water, what fire, who my mother's angry children are, and where never ends, where I begin, and what Puabi did with the key to the death pit where the banquet was. The only thing worse than being unloved is being loved above all others. Ein Beit Resh, pronounced Abara, means violation, means moving, since at a certain point it's hard to stop. Moving from one word to the next, because Ein Beit Resh, pronounced Ivri, is language, or Hebrew, and a state of existence if you happen to be Avram, the first Hebrew crossing a river from his and Queen Puabi's hometown, into Canaan. Since then, every age of wonder has its own body of water, and the inconsolable who discover that what they crossed was sometimes only the usual kind of water, which is why Baudelaire said, always be drunk. Be drunk means be emptied or else filled, almost all the way, but never at the same time. A tooth in the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico. My grandfather reminds me of Noah. first thing upon disembarking, his native village obliterated, he planted himself a vineyard too. I'm going to start reading the poems from the new book that's called Decency, and it is based on 19th and 18th and 17th century books of etiquette, because I was interested in the way that rulers at that time ruled over a group of people that wasn't necessarily their own ethnicity or race or language, and so they needed books to tell each other how to behave with one another. So I've applied these to regular everyday occurrences, and I'll start off with Catherine de' Medici, who I've been fascinated with for years. She brought the fork and high heel shoes into Europe, and the artichoke. Okay. So this is a double sonnet that it's broken up in a funny way. Okay. Catherine de' Medici and the artichoke. I can see her fingers plucking purple-green petals from 350 years away. See her drag her impertinent teeth across their fine flesh, discarding them as she swallows. That buttery day in her 14th year, she arrived to wed France. Calmly slit the bristled throat and stroke the cervix-shaped artichoke bottom to Russell's up. If once any of us ladies had eaten artichokes, we would have been pointed at in the street. Catherine says, I like to burst. After that, several things happened, and after those, her sheathed body, now her husband is deceased, turns to the Queen Mother, who from a bowl between her knees is stuffing herself sick with artichoke bottoms and cockerel kidneys and cockerel combs. It was actually, I just spent a week in Paris before coming here because I didn't want to have a 6-hour layover in Newark. And the French are so polite. They have
that
such,
was the only reason, right?
yeah, such exquisite table manners, and it's nice because I'm training, and my daughter's a sort of wild animal when she eats. So I was able to tell her that it was illegal to eat with your fingers and smack in France. So, okay, the next one is called Decency. At the end of our marriage, I remember the raccoons of my childhood that came to steal our corn. The king snake, asleep in a barrel of feed, nipped by my coffee can scoop. Then his smooth brass coils around my wrist, and how in panic I took a BB gun and shot him, and how my father whipped me good for killing a decent, harmless creature. And how my brother set the spring-triggered iron jaw trap for the coons in the dim light of the barn floor. My cat stepped into it and caught her paw, and how she howled, her desperate twist, and when I bent to release her, she bit my finger, and it swelled 10 times its normal size. And how that's what happens, my father said, when you touch an animal in pain. And this one is an ode to Texas men. I wrote it in New York when I saw workers on strike. And so it takes place actually on Broadway, but it's called Men on Strike, and it's written in a haiku series sequence, not that it matters when you hear it. Men on parade. Men, migrant, Hispanic, and rednecks in long hair, clean shaven, the kind my daddy bought parts from, never touching. Some of them could rewire your grandma's house, sharing their wife's tortillas. They'd have stopped on the narrow shoulder of the highways to help you change a flat, or driven you to town to fill up the gas can they were lending you, or given you a jump in the near deserted parking lot. And here they are now, embarrassed as hell, like you had asked them to hug their neighbor's wife in church at the kiss of peace. You know they secretly like it. The men I like most answer, not yet. instead of none that I know of. Some wear Cuban heels and tight jeans and spin when they dance you. The tall black Southern leader counterclockwise keeps time today, calling who's the man, calling who's gonna go, in sharp beats. They are embarrassed to dance with invisible partners called below minimum wage, insufficient benefits. Everyone looking, attracting attention to the fact of bodies as things with needs, where before there had only been necklace links, impossibly delicate, their daughters brought them, unknotting themselves between thick fingers, engines shuddering to the quick strike of a spark plug, the free combusting, that which a casing contains, all the invisible forces that keep the machines of the world whirling and penned to the self-cleaning sky. Chrysler building in full bloom, forgive them. They feel bad, like they ruined a playground. This one here, where just past Broadway and the Grace Building slides to a stop at their feet. Okay. I translate a lot, and we have Bella Winda here that Host Publications published, and it's on the front. And I've translated a couple of books from the Czech. My parents spoke Czech, my family spoke Czech at home. But I've started translating for the first time from Hebrew. I wanted to just read two poems that I hope a local press here is about to take. The poet is called Orit Gidali, and this one is for travelers. It's called Did You Pack It Yourself? Of all the things to ask, did you pack it yourself? Yes, by myself. It was hard, I say, but it's even harder to believe that it will never come. I'm not beautiful, you see, and the heart is the size of a fist. And this one is called, I called to tell a friend my mother is dying. Yes, well, I moved apartments 3 times in 3 years. It still beats buying, in my opinion. Who knows how long this country will last? Oh, who has time? The children, the work. I just called to hear your voice. Awful things are happening in this world. How are you? Now round 2.